Alright everyone, welcome back to Planet Zoo. For the first time ever, we're not starting this episode at the start of the build itself. Now the reason for that is because this habitat is humongous. It's by far the biggest one we've done, and of course, as you can tell from the title, it is for the Bengal tiger. So in order to make sure the animal couldn't escape the habitat, I had to create tons of tests and stuff like that with rocks and heights and stuff so it couldn't escape the habitat. I think the point this video started on was about an hour and a half into the build. Though truth be told, I'm not 100% sure because I did it whilst on FaceTime to someone. Don't get me wrong, I still love doing these builds and making this series, but it can get a little bit boring when you just sat here for 2.5 hours placing rocks and stuff like that, which, especially in the plateaus and the basin, they've been really height variated, so I really have had to place a lot of rocks. Regardless, the piece de resistance, the Bengal Tiger Temple. The temples are one of the main reasons I wanted to have the Bengal tigers within this region of the zoo. Of course, tigers tend to be orange and black, maybe a bit of white in there, and then they contrast really well with the green jungle and the white rocks that we've got here. So what better place than here? This is going to be the biggest exhibit we might have in this entire region, and they really do need it. In the wild, tigers have 20 to 100 kilometers square of territory, which is why out of all animals that most zoos have, I think tigers are generally one of the cruelest. Of course, some of them rescue them from the wild from when they were young or breed them for the zoo, stuff like that. So as always, there is exceptions, but generally speaking, I really don't think tigers get the amount of care that they need. But here in Project COVEA, they have a ton of space, way more than the game requires you to have. Something that really surprised me about the tigers in Planet Zoo, because keep in mind, most of the animals that I'm adding this series, I've never even had in a zoo before in this game. What surprised me is the amount of foliage and stuff that they would need. I expected them to want loads of trees and plants and have a huge space, tons of climbing platforms, all that stuff. But it turns out, no, what they really prefer is more rocky and dirty terrain with less trees and stuff like that, which, like I said, really was a surprise to me. That's just not what I would expect. But you guys know me, I can't resist the lush jungle, so to be honest, I have added a lot of trees and stuff like that anyway, but it doesn't make them that unhappy. They're still very, very happy with the exhibit. Of course, the amount of space really makes up for it. I mentioned what I was thinking of putting in this exhibit in the last episode. I was thinking maybe a jaguar or a tiger or possibly gorillas, I think is what I mentioned. But whilst I was just flying around the zoo preparing to start recording this episode, I thought giraffes might be a good idea. I'm not sure how good that would have been. I mean, obviously I decided against it, so it's a bit irrelevant, but still, I do think giraffes are going to be something I add in this region. I mean, it's fairly obvious why, right? Giraffes are very tall, and it'd be cool to have their necks go all the way up to the bridges and stuff we've got going across the plateau, so maybe you could reach down, feed them, pet them, something like that. So giraffes, that's something that I'm definitely banking on coming up at an episode in the future, very, very soon. As you've seen over the past minute or so, I've started creating the ruins of this exhibit, and I went really overboard. I spent a lot of time making these ruins. I had 3 individual little ruin sections that I had on 3 different tiers of the entire enclosure. And I ended up turning these ruins into climbing platforms for the tigers, because whilst they don't require it, they definitely do use it. I've seen them use it a ton, and I messed around while I was trying to get a screenshot for the thumbnail. I really tried to make these climbing platforms look good, and I think they look fantastic. Honestly, this ruin section that I'm building right now, once it's got all the plants and the roots all nestled into the walls and stuff like that, I think it looks fantastic. Over the last couple episodes, we've made plenty of these climbing platforms for the bonobos, and we've done them before for the red pandas and stuff like that. But they can be so tedious, and I think you guys could have been able to tell that. I just haven't been too happy with the results of the climbing platforms in any of the other exhibits. But yeah, I'm extremely happy with how this climbing platform turned out. Side note, by the way, I am desperately trying to get out the habit of calling habitats exhibits or enclosures and stuff like that. I hate the impression that those words give. I know it's something you guys probably won't care about at all, but it bugs the hell out of me. But I just can't get out the habit of doing it. So here's what I want you to do. Every time I say enclosure or exhibit, I want you to shout at me in the comments. Expose me, ridicule me, do what you have to do. I want to get out of this habit. Anyways, moving on. You remember when I said this is a really long build? Yeah, good, because that's going to come to fruition right now. To avoid confusion, I'm just going to tell you guys what I'm about to do. I'm about to cut out most of the rest of making these platforms on the ruins, just because it's a little bit samey and it's really not that important to how this exhibit looks overall. And there's a hell of a lot of it, so I'm going to cut in 3, 2, 1. Did it work? Did I do it right? Oh, you guys are over here. Hi. Good stuff. So we're about to start doing all the foliage and stuff like that. You can see in the background all the platforms on the ruins have been built, although you will get a proper look at that, of course, in the showcase after the time lapse, as always. With this habitat being so big, it's the first opportunity I've really had to use the bigger trees in the game, like kapok, or at least more than one Mimber tree. I think we had one in the pygmy hippo habitat. Hopefully in the future I'll get to use trees like that and, you know, foliage, decoration, stuff like that more often, because of course we've had the Ruby Basin, which is more wet and it has more thin trees and stuff like that, and then we have this area which is really mountainy, so there's not a lot of space for big trees like that. But generally speaking, the rest of the zoo is going to be pretty normal, just like typical jungle. We'll have some waterfalls, some big areas of trees and stuff like that. You're seeing me right now doing all the terrain painting, so not the rocks and the plants and stuff like that, but just colouring the floor so they're happy with their environment. And like I mentioned earlier, they prefer more dirty and rocky habitats, which was really a surprise to me, like I mentioned. And speaking of the tiger's actual requirements, I was hoping that the ruins would be big enough for them to go under and use as actual hard shelter, you know, to get away from the sun when it's really warm or the rain when it's raining. But even though it looks like they should be able to get under there, and realistically it should work, they didn't actually have the ability to get under the majority of the ruins at least. There's probably some shelter, and I think actually on the statistics it did show a little bit, but they needed more, so I added a small little cave underneath the tallest part of their enclosure, which is more than enough. There's only 2 tigers in this enclosure. In Planet Zoo, they will get upset if there's any more than 2 tigers, so it'll be 1 male, 1 female, and that's perfectly fine with me. I wouldn't want to add any more. Also, I haven't mentioned this yet, but the petrified plateaus are really far away from the Ruby Basin. Like, really far away, way further than they really need to be. Which isn't ideal, but I think I've come up with a good solution that'll work, and we're gonna have all 4 corners as different kind of regions. So we've got in the bottom left the Ruby Basin, in the top left we've got petrified plateaus, in the top right I already have plans, in the bottom right I don't, and then the middle section, maybe we'll have something in there, maybe that's some humongous plaza, maybe we have some hotels or something like that. Though that's not really relevant. What I'm trying to say is I think I'm just going to have these huge open sections of jungle that aren't going to have really any animals in. Maybe I will, maybe I'll put just some huge animals with humongous enclosures, and then connect the different regions like the Ruby Basin to the petrified plateaus with some kind of monorail or something like that. I mean, how cool would it be? Because these animals are going to be in it. The Indian elephant. Imagine if we had that, the huge Indian elephant habitat that had the ability to go all the way to the Ruby Basin from the petrified plateaus, and they have all that terrain to roam from. It's not a flawless solution, but I think it's the best one we've got. The only other option would be to change the entire petrified plateaus and move the entire thing further south, which is just not something I'm going to do. That's not an option. That would take hours upon hours to do. Anyways, we're coming up to the end of the time lapse here, so I'm going to go ahead and leave you with some music, and I will see you in just a few seconds with the showcase for the end of the video. See you in a minute. Alright everyone, so we're back in real time. To be honest, there isn't a whole lot to show you today. It's more just an overall view of the exhibit. There isn't individual things that I would like to make note on or anything like that. Regardless of that though, I'm really happy with how this exhibit turns out. The overall look, even when you're all the way up here and you're seeing the overall kind of just style of this entire region for the zoo, I think it looks fantastic. Because we've got this area which I think generally speaking is much more dense forest and stuff like that, which I think is great, and I think that's generally what most of this is going to be like. But then we've got this huge deforested area which normally wouldn't be a good thing, and sure, maybe it's still not, but I think it looks great. It's nice to be able to stand right here on the viewing area for the tigers and look out over the entire thing. You can see all 3 ruins from a different spot on this platform. And if I unpause the game here, you can see I added the waterfall. I even added some rapids and stuff that are like moving past some rocks that I placed down, and I add them along this barrier here, which I think look great. I really do think they add to the river, because otherwise the water tends to look quite boring. What's this guy called? Amira. Hello. And Samarth. That's a weird name. I haven't actually spent a lot of time just watching the tigers do their thing yet. In fact, unfortunately, I never really spend a lot of time with the animals. It's more just I build the exhibit, watch them around while I try to take the thumbnail, which usually takes in about 30 to 40 minutes because I'm really specific about how I want my thumbnails to be. But other than that, I really haven't spent much time with any of the animals since I've built their habitats. The main thing I wanted to show you was these ruins up here and how I've done all these climbing platforms on it. This right here is their food tree. It's not been filled up for some odd reason. The keepers are pretty horrific in this game if you ask me. But just stuff like making sure it looks like it should be supported. Like I've got 2 little posts here and it's supported by this little stone column. I've got this little thing which are made out of climbable pieces, but I'm not sure if the tigers can walk on these small ones. I very much doubt they can. You can see another instance of that here. I've got these smaller ones underneath it that makes it look like it should actually be supported realistically. Just overall, these ruins really are great. They're definitely my favorite ones that I've built so far, and I'm really, honestly, it's great that I'm improving because we're going to have a lot more of these. I'm not sure what animal we're going to be doing next, but at some point we will do the Bornean orangutan, and that is going to have a huge temple because I feel like the orangutan is the closest thing we've got to King Louis from the Jungle Book, and for some reason I just really want to build like the temple from the films. I just paused the game because I heard a noise in the background while I was talking there, and I want to see if you guys can hear it, so I'm going to turn up my desktop audio on OBS all the way up, so it's probably going to be pretty loud. Sorry if it is over me, but I'm going to hit play here. Okay, you might not have heard that. I'll have to check the recording. But I could hear the bonobos playing the piano from all the way over here. That is ridiculous. The tigers don't use that enrichment. There isn't a piano in this exhibit. Why can I hear it from all the way over here? That's insane. Anyways, this part of the, this angle of the exhibit, should I say, is not as great. I really just haven't done the rocks on this yet. Like I said, this is a huge build, and it's probably something I'm going to do on stream, which I know I still haven't done. I said I would do it, but I will do it at some point, I swear. It's simply something I just haven't gotten around to yet. I don't know. I really don't have a valid excuse. I just haven't done it, but I will do it at some point. And I didn't comment much on this fence when I was building the time-lapse. I've got the breeze block, which we also had supporting the bridge all the way over here by the bonobos. So I mentioned I definitely want to use breeze block because it contrasts really well with the natural rock in this area. And then I've got these East Asia fences and some just normal wooden planks that I've painted white because I think they go well with the breeze block. It's just a lot better than having an ugly basic game chain link fence there, which was what I planned on doing initially, but I really don't think that would look good at all. Also worth mentioning, I'm thinking about expanding the bonobo exhibit up around here, so I might kind of chop this area off so it can't run up here. So the wall will go along here, and then I'll block it off underneath this bridge, so it'll support the bridge and block off the bonobos from the rest of the zoo. But at the same time, that would be a humongous exhibit just for some bonobos. So I'll have to see how that goes. I don't know. I'll see how other things turn out around the area. I think this area is going to be for the orangutans, and then we've got all this area for other stuff. I'm really not sure. We'll just see if this area is open at the end of it. And if it is, then we'll expand the bonobo exhibit because bonobos always need more space. There he is. I feel like it's ritual for us to go and see this guy, or just see one of the bonobos playing the piano every episode now. I feel like that's something we should do. Okay, maybe not. They're very annoying. It's really loud. I could hear it from all the way over there. It's ridiculous. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode and enjoyed the build. If you have anything you want to see in the next episode, so make sure to leave a comment. And as always, if you want an animal named after you, then do the same thing. But for now, that is all. I'll see you guys all in the next episode. See you later. Bye!